from you. Welcome to day 4 of our Career Exploration Conference. Today it focuses on business and finance. We would also like to thank all of you for attending this session, and we hope you learn valuable information. Before we get started, just some house rules. We ask that you keep the talking to a minimum and to keep the hallways clear. Jazakallah khair. Just a reminder about our upcoming events. If you've been here for the other days, I know you guys keep hearing this over and over again, but just a reminder, we have Imam Fuad tomorrow, starting at 6:45, scanning QR code to save a spot, and then we're bringing donuts. And then we also have a kickboxing class that starts August 19th. It'll be every Saturday and Sunday mornings. So if you want more information, go ahead and head to our Instagram at MCA Youth. So our first speaker today is Ahmed Salam, who is currently the founder, inventor, and CEO of DeepSafe Technology. He also has previous experience as a CTO for Intel and chief technologist and chief security architect for McAfee. Sorry if I said that wrong. McAfee. Our second speaker will be Zulki Khan, who is the founder and former CEO of NextLogic Technology. Since 1995, NextLogic Technology has been a premier provider of PCB design, fabrication, and assembly. And then our last speaker is Yusuf Khan, who's currently, last but not least, who's currently a partner at Ridge Venture. Brother Yusuf also has previous experience as a CIO for Hult International Business School and has been an advisor for companies like Zoom, Productive, and many others. Please give them a warm welcome.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد أفضل الخلق والمرسلين. My name is Ahmed Salam, as the sister said. I have been, my career actually as a professional career is about 33 years now. And it's hard to kind of like summarize that in a few minutes. But what I can say is for the limited amount of time that's available, I'm gonna start with the beginning of my career and where, and the middle and then the end. The beginning of my career was actually interesting. This was, I was having my undergraduate studies in computer science, University of Alexandria, Egypt. And this was specifically 1987, my first year. And we had the computer class and we're learning about programming in basic language. And I wanted to create my first program to actually about the prayers of the Muslims. And as I was writing the program, I wanted to insert the text in Arabic because the prayers are in Arabic. I am in Egypt. So I couldn't. And I thought there is like a switch in the computer, like you click on it, it's gonna turn Arabic or something. There wasn't. So I was during this lecture, 1,200 people there, and the head of the chair of the computer science class giving this public lecture, and I raised my hand and I said, Professor, I'm trying to write a program and I'm unable to have Arabic characters or Arabic letters. Is there something wrong with the computers? So he looked at me like, you know, I'm just coming from the outer space. He said, what do you mean? I said, I'm trying to write a program to display text in Arabic. Then he said, who said that they have to work in Arabic? I said, what do you mean? I'm Egyptian, I speak Arabic, I'm in Egypt. Why don't I just write a program that speaks my language? Then he literally said, when you make your own computer, make it speak your own language. And everyone there laughed, a population of 1,200. Then I responded, I said, okay, I want to make my own computer. So he looked at me again and he said, that will take you another 50 years of study. By the time you get to that, you will be too old like me. So maybe you can find something more meaningful for yourself to do. I said, well, if no one else has done it, maybe I'm gonna do it. And literally for the 10 years after that, I spent a long journey in bringing Arabic language support into PCs, into Windows operating systems, and into the web browsers. And that got me into tough competition with Microsoft. But I want to tell you, 1995, every single copy of Windows that was sold in the entire Middle East with Arabic language support was a product I created. The code was written by me and by the team with me, and it was us. Also, we released the first Arabic browser. We also released the first end-to-end infrastructure that supports Arabic language, which included at the time, 1997, support for text-to-speech and translation from Arabic to English as well. Fast forward 1999, 1997 as well, I started to have passion in security because with whatever I was doing with the Arabic language support, I could literally control every single element of the hardware, the firmware, and the software. And there was no one else worldwide who had that type of, I would say, not only ability, but also the skills. So I thought maybe I should redirect those skills to security. Came here in the country in 1999 as a founding engineer for a company that was trying to secure the production and distribution of audio content on the internet. Just to give you an idea, we were ahead of Apple, ahead of Microsoft, ahead of Real Networks at the time. The team that was with me, we were all Egyptians. Eventually, we sold the company to as assets to a company called Digimark. Then fast forward with my unique skills in security, I became a principal engineer at Symantec, and I pioneered a new model for security called proactive behavioral protection. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has blessed me with so many inventions at the time, and then I continued to evolve with my ideas and my work, joining then McAfee, becoming the company chief architect, and then making a larger impact by moving security from being reactive to being fully proactive on the endpoint. Proactive means it's called zero-day protection, or you protect viruses without having a signature based on the behavior. And then I started to bring that back to the cloud, building what's became known as global threat intelligence for McAfee. And interestingly, I still am a holder as a sole inventor of all of those patents, alhamdulillah. My journey took me to think about the design of the computer hardware because I brought Arabic language support over there. I thought of doing the same for security. And I spent another good 5-6 years with Intel, literally bringing security down to the hardware. Then joined a company called Citrix. It's a very known company where they build remote applications and remote desktops. Wherever you go, in a hospital, to a clinic, to an airport, even to a jail, hopefully none of you ends up there, but they all actually use Citrix products. That part also took me to work with the federal government on creating special secure devices for the US government. I have full pride that at some point, President Barack Obama, at some period of time, was using a device that came from my team as well. And now I run a company, it's a small independent consultancy company called Deep Safe Technology, where I look at safety in a holistic manner. Safety that covers security as part of it, but also technology that is safe to humans, safe emotionally, psychologically, and also religiously. And that's a long topic, which is also another journey I started in 1996 when I built the first product for content filtering, which basically you surf the internet and it can do skin detection, so it can literally eliminate any content that's inappropriate, or also remove any image that would be like not enough coverage for the skin. In that technology that I built at that time, not only I would control the content, but I would replace it on the fly with something that would guide the person and explain why this particular content has been prevented. I continue to work in the same spirit, and I always remember that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has commanded us as Muslims to be sources of goodness on earth. And part of it is, bringing that safe notion to computer systems. I'm going to stop here and pass it to the brother. And Jazakallah khairan. Oh, and the company name I run now is Deep Safe Technology. It's deepsafetechnology.com or deepsafe.tech. And if you want to contact us for internship or anything, we have a contact form you can fill, and we're going to come back to you. My son Yusuf as well, he is part of Deep Safe, and you can speak with him if you have more questions. Jazakallah khair.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. How's everyone doing today? Good? Here to learn some things, hopefully. So I've been told to share my story, my life story, and I'm hoping whatever I'm going to share, you're going to get some pieces of advice, something that took us a while, to all of us, maybe 10, 20, 30 years, and you can get it in next hour or two. So starting with myself, I was born and raised in a place called Hyderabad, Pakistan. Had the initial education there. And then came to a school in Karachi. It's an engineering school called NED University. And I did my electrical engineering from there. The reason for doing engineering at that time was I always wanted to do business. I was born businessman. I wanted to do it when I was even in middle school. So when it came to make a decision after intermediate, I talked to my dad, and my dad said, business is good, but do some technical degree and then you can do MBA. So in those days, unlike these days, no offense, whatever your dad says, you zip it and you say, yes, dad, that's done, right? So I did engineering, electrical engineering, and right after that, I came to the US for MBA. And that's also a very interesting journey, but don't have time to go in details that time for that one. But after I did my engineering, my MBA, it was from a school in Iowa called University of Iowa. And that was one of the most difficult time for me in my life because the Gulf War was happening. Saddam Hussein had invaded Kuwait. The only industry that was thriving at that time was aerospace and military. Other than that, not too many people were hiring. We had a limitation. We had a limitation as a foreign student to find a job in 6 months of graduating. It's called practical training. And then if you do find a job, it can be renewed for one more term of 6 months. So total, you are there for about a year. In that year, if you can't find a job, you have to go back to your home country, or you become a student again. So in those days, there were no jobs. I had a degree in business administration. I had a degree in electrical engineering. And there was no money, by the way, right? I came to the country with $1,200 and a scholarship. So you go where your friends are. So my friend was in Houston. I went and crashed his apartment for a few months looking for a job. There's no internet at that time, mind you, right? So job you're applying either by calling the people and trying to get your way through into the company, or you're going to fax the resume to the person. And kids today probably may not know what fax is, right? And then other thing is just plain old simple mail, right? You mail your resume to whoever is looking for hiring. So engineering, accounting, finance, all kind of degrees from Houston to Seattle to Dallas, Minneapolis, traveled from place to place every 2, 3 months. Couldn't find anything, moved to a different city, different set of friends, because there's no money to pay for your, livelihood. You're making barely enough to keep your life going. So you go from friend to friend. Whoever said, "Oh, yes, you can come and stay at my place free of cost," you go there. So look for a job. Couldn't find anything. In that 1 year, I applied to over 1,000 jobs, either via fax, via phone, or mail. And I got maybe about 30 or 40 interviews, zero job. Now there are 2 months left. Either you become a student, which I didn't want to become, go home, which I didn't want to do. So I found a job through my part-time job, which I was doing to just make the living, ends meet, through a friend of a person who hired me on an hourly job. So he told me that this company, this guy, go and meet with him. So I went and talked to him, and this guy knew that I didn't have green card. So he said, "Okay, you don't have green card. It's fine. You have qualification. What I will do is I'll give you $7 an hour." I said, "With engineering and MBA, I get $7. His response was, "McDonald will give you 5.5. I'll give you 7. You'll learn something here. We'll process your green card." I said, "I'm in." So even though it was a engineering job, so-called engineering job, there was not a whole lot of pay, but I didn't care at that time, because all I'm saying is, do I have a job? Do I have somebody who can sponsor me for a green card? So there was a company, and that was the beginning of my technical journey. So we got my green card. Then the choice at that time was, do I go and find a decent job in the industry, because this job is not paying anything, but I learned a few things, or to venture into your own business. Didn't have money, didn't have much savings. So what I did is I wrote a business plan, small little, nothing fancy. Imad can do a better job. My son's sitting right here. 10 pages. I started showing to friends or friends' or friends' bosses. I showed it to about half a dozen people. And one person, he said, "Yes, I can invest $30,000, which I didn't have at that time. And I'll invest in you and your whatever you're trying to do, and I'll give you some space in my office." So he did. And it's right across, that space is right across from MCA, 3003 Scott Boulevard, which, we used to just come for prayers when I was there. So started this company, gave away about a third of the company to this guy who offered $30,000. And what we were trying to do, and I thought I knew everything about hardware design and manufacturing. So what we were doing is we were designing, manufacturing, and assembling circuit boards. So anything and everything that's a hardware you have to touch and feel, from your phone to your projector to even this mic. There's some kind of a circuit board in there. So that's my job, was in Chicago for 2 years, who processed my green card. So I started that, and I thought I knew everything. Sure enough, in the first few weeks, I realized that no, I didn't know much. I mean, yes, I know enough to start the business, but there's so much to learn, and that is something you need to realize at any given point, that yes, you have an idea, you want to do something. There's always so much more to learn, so much more to know. I remember an idea, a project. There used to be a company that you guys have probably never heard of, called Lucent Technologies, out of Canada. Huge telecommunication company. We won a project from them, small little prototype project. We were supposed to make like 5 boards. And we bid the project, we got the project. When the project arrived, in the kit, in the project, the raw material to make the board, there was one physical component that was brand new at the time, called BGA, ball grid array. Some of you are hardware engineers, they might know, but that's a specialized component. It requires specialized processes, specialized machines, and X-rays to be able to stuff it on the board. We had no idea what to do. We have never, I mean, we have known about this product. We have no idea what this is and how to do it. So, and this is like not, we don't have weeks to do that. It's like 1 week we have to finish it. So started scrambling to see who can help us with that. We can do the whole project except for this small little part. So one thing that you have, if you think of starting a business, you have to be very nimble. You have to think on your feet. You have to make decisions out of the box. You have to keep thinking because there's no room for error. You have to find a solution. It's not that you can pass it to your boss because there's no boss. You are everything there is. So we figured out a way to get it done. Somebody was able to do that. So started growing slowly, organically on whatever funds we could do. So when you start a business, there are few ways to do that. You can go to your dad, ask or your parents or whatever, or you can go to a bank if bank is willing to give you a loan. But typically, new projects are not entertained by the bank. Or you can go to brother Yusuf for money. He's the loaded guy. He's a VC, right? So you go to VC, but for a small amount of money, like 30, 40, 50,000, they're not. Angel investor is something you can go to. But when you have limited resources and you have product going, you have company going, then you have to find ways. So one of example that I think of, because when I started the company called NextLogic, we offered the world. We can do design, we can do manufacturing, we can do testing, we can do assembly, we can do everything. You give us a piece of your design on a napkin, which you see from time to time, maybe you do too, and we'll make you a fully functional working product. But what we didn't want at that time, what I didn't want for customers to come and see me, because I have a small little office. There's one computer, couple of modems. You probably don't know what a modem is, to transfer the data before internet was. So I'm telling you things which are kind of dinosaurs age and all that, right? So anyway, it's a few hundred square feet office, and if somebody comes and customer comes and they want to audit your site or whatever, what's there? Sure, table and chair, and where would you do the manufacturing and everything? So what I did is I started placing ads in the print media. In those days, there was no internet, remember? So print media ads to the places which are at least 500 miles or more. So customers cannot come and see me. Yes, they know we are offering the product, but they cannot physically come, and see, because they'd come, they say, where would you do all that? I mean, oh, you're brokering or you're subcontracting. We can go and find somebody directly, so we are not interested in coming to a third party. But that's how we grew. So first full year in 96, our revenue was a little over 400,000. It became $1.5 million, and it kept growing. So slowly we started hiring. We started bringing manufacturing in-house. We had design engineers. We started office in Pakistan, and in the later partnerships in India and all that. So kept growing. We had three verticals. One was medical and biomedical. One was aerospace and military. One was semiconductor. And the choice for making those three verticals is, I would say they are recession proof, but they are recession resilient. They'll always be, US unfortunately will always be in a war with somebody or the other. So you need aerospace, you need military. Sickness and illness is never going to stop. So you have to have medical and biomedical devices, so. And the third was semiconductor, and that was the reason for the Valley. With so many hardware companies, they're churning out brand new chips and devices like Intel or Maxim or NVIDIA, and you have to support their whole core infrastructure. That keeps you going, and you can always make some prototype. Our claim to fame was quick turn prototypes. You give us something in 3 to 5 days, we'll make it happen. With a team in Pakistan, they work 24/7, make it happen. But when it comes to premium, we'll charge more than the normal people because we can make it happen for you. The comment we typically used to get from the customers is, when we gave it to NextLogic, we get peace of mind. We know it's a little bit more expensive, but we know it'll be done at the end of the day. I'll tell you one small story. How much time we have? I'll take another probably a few minutes. You might have heard of a company called Theranos. Elizabeth Holmes, the company, the lady who was at 19 from Stanford, first year, she had an idea of a medical device that can take 200 tests out of 1 or 2 drops of blood. It's all public knowledge, right? And in the initial board of directors, there was Larry Ellison, founder of Oracle, George Shultz, Henry Kissinger. I mean, people who you cannot think anymore, A-list or, the topmost people, they were the board of directors for them. Somehow they found us, we started working with them. And at one point towards their end, we were doing everything, their whole prototyping, the whole manufacturing, everything. And their claim to fame was 1 or 2 drops of blood can give you 200 results, which is approved by FDA, or so they claimed. Elizabeth Holmes, at 19, she dropped out of Stanford and started this company called Theranos. And in time, she raised, I think, over $400 or $500 million. Her net worth at the peak of Theranos was, the company was worth $9 billion with a B, and her personal worth was $4.5 billion. She had a 50% stake in the company. But whatever they were claiming, there was no truth to us. We were doing all the work for them, and when we would tell them, hey, can you show us in your lab, take us where we are making all these machines for you, all these designs, they would not agree to that. They'll keep us in the conference room or their wellness center, which is also in the front of the office. So this was all hoopla, all show and tell, nothing was happening. But even companies like that, I mean, when we go to a customer, they'd love to show where the products that we have made, where they're working, labs, their warehouses, wherever they are. But anyway, so we went from doing $3 billion a year business to 0 in just overnight, because there was a bad story in Wall Street Journal, and the company went from Elizabeth Holmes, who was the darling of the industry with interviews in CNBC, Bloomberg, all these big networks and cover of Fortune or whatever, to almost 0. She's in jail now, by the way. But anyway, so we've seen so many things along the way, but towards the end in 2021, the company was sold to a private equity, partly because the guy sitting here, he didn't want to take over the company. My other kids, I'm just joking, but but I thought, how much money would you make? How much is enough? So I have this feeling of, why don't I give something back to the community from which I belong, either here or in Pakistan or wherever. So I started a nonprofit called Human Empowerment and Welfare Trust, and we offer microcredit, interest-free loans to people, typically in Pakistan, but now we are in 3 East African countries, Rwanda, Uganda, and Kenya. We have over 4,000 beneficiaries, give small loans, mostly to women, so that they can start a small little business of their own, home base. It could be sewing center, embroidery, a small little tuck shop in one of their room, a tuition center, anything that can make them, enable them to stand on their own feet and be able to stand tall in those small villages across the world. In this $200, $300, $400, you could go to a good restaurant, 4 or 5 people, you can spend that kind of money on one meal. Here in the US, that $300 or $400 can change somebody's life. So that is my mission in life. I want to, my goal is, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala permits, to change the lives of at least not change, touch the lives of at least 1 million people in a positive way. So this is what I'm doing. NextLogic was sold to a private equity company, and my focus right now, other than about half a dozen for-profit ventures, I'm focusing most of my time on the non-profit. I think I've taken too much of my time, but thank you very much for listening.
Assalamu alaikum. I'm not sure I can follow that up, but I'll give it a shot. So first of all, thanks for setting this up. I think conversations like this are important. I think to your point earlier, I think the output you want to get is a few takeaways or advice in terms of how you think about both your careers and journeys, and both of your stories are inspirational. Let me try and shift it a little bit different way rather than giving you a chronology. I'll try and summarize and then happy to take questions as well. Probably to explain my kind of career journey, and I would say life, really sums up in 3 core words. I'll add a 4th one as a bonus. The 3 Fs: fear, fighting, and faith. And that's really been kind of at the heart of kind of how I've gone about my journey. The last one is chewing gum, which I'll tell you a little bit about why that is, which I'll explain. So quick background, I was born in Pakistan. At the age of 2 months, my dad got a job in Egypt, actually. So I actually spent the first 7 years of my life in Egypt. That's why I asked. I was in Cairo, and I spent every other month in Alexandria. So, and then when I was about 6 or 7, I moved to London, which is why you've got a crazy accent. And then actually, my dad got a job in Kenya. So I spent 7 years in Kenya, graduated high school, so I know Nairobi. And then I decided to go back to London for university, a place called King's College London. And I arrived with, it was about £3,000 to include, take care of rent. The tuition at the time was £9,000. So a little bit of a deficit, but need to figure that one out. That's where chewing gum comes in. So I spent some time at King's College London. I had to take a year out because I did not have enough money for my second year of tuition. Then decided to get a job for 1 year, which would basically help me pay for my second year of university. And then I didn't know what I was going to do for my 3rd year. But sometimes you just have to have faith and kind of keep moving forward. I'm right now working at a venture capital firm. There's many of these firms in Silicon Valley. There weren't many in Europe at the time, but it's something that I was very conscious of. What do? We invest in crazy ideas. Well, to me, they're not that crazy, but to a lot of people, it is kind of crazy. And it's always very interesting to get inspired by people who, take faith and have no fear and want to fight to basically create a great company. And I think you're an example of that. So I do that day in, day out, and I love my job. I've had to put my own wealth into it to become a partner. And a large part of my motivation is to be able to see companies grow and build. That's ultimately what it comes down to for me. It's a different objective for a lot of other people, but that's what I do. I accidentally fell into this industry. What was I supposed to do? Well, I was studying at King's College London doing a business degree, and 99% of my friends were supposed to work in investment banking. Why? Because that was the thing to do. That's how you were able to make money, and it was the right opportunity to do so. I had an interesting background in my own life, having seen lots of wealth growing up with my father, and then not any wealth at all, because unfortunately, in circumstances which I won't go into because that'll be therapeutic, basically my family lost everything. And so right down to being reduced to living in 1 bedroom in an apartment on 2 bunk beds. It was me and my parents and my 2 sisters. So having that was fearful. And sometimes I don't wish that on anyone, but having a degree of fear about where you want to go and knowing that you don't have options is a bit of a wake-up call for many people. I don't wish that on anyone, but it allows you to then actually have fight to be able to do that. So my first job when I moved to college was ripping chewing gum off the floors of carpets in a theater. I was paid £5 an hour, so the exchange rate, I was $7 an hour. So, I beat you on that one. And then at the same time, I worked at what was known as a video rental store. Now that before Netflix, you actually went to a physical place. I know this sounds crazy, and you actually paid somebody for renting a videotape, which was like this thick, for about $4 a night. And I used to do that. So I used to finish work at 6 p.m. at the office, go to the video store, work till midnight, and then get back home and start all over again. And so I'm a big movie file, so I can quote, and that was my only hobby that I basically had. One day I was during my summer vacation. Well, it was not really vacation because you're working all the time earning money. I got a call from an agency, a temp agency, which said there's a company that's moving into new offices, and they just need some help people moving. Now, sometimes you just have to have a bit of faith that if you want to earn some money, you just do what you need to do. And at that time, I didn't really have that luxury. A lot of my friends were having summer vacations. I was trying to find jobs to pay £5 an hour. That company was an internet startup. The internet boom had started coming into place. I didn't know anything about it. I was supposed to go work at Citibank or Goldman Sachs, hoping they would accept me. And so I took a job, which was £5 an hour, British pounds, and all I had to do was to move boxes. During that time, it was supposed to be one day, just so you're aware. But I turned up, and it was fascinating. And sometimes being surrounded by people who've got high energy, and you're like, wow, what are these people drinking? I don't know. I don't drink, but still. I was like, why is everyone so happy here? And when you found out that this company only had 2 people 6 months ago, and now there were 200 people because of something called venture capital funding, I looked that term up. I didn't know what it was, and it was really interesting to see that an idea could be made reality, and that is a really fascinating thing to think about. One day led into 1 week. I was ordering food for the IT team, and the CTO at the time was like, "I need you to order food, and I need you to be my assistant." And that actually got me into learning how technology systems actually work, because I was doing everything from ordering food and calendaring and all the other things. And all of a sudden, I discovered I was relatively good at understanding technology. It helps if you have a little bit of faith in yourself to know that you can actually learn. So one piece of advice I always give is you have to constantly be learning. If you don't do that, you want to get onto elevators which are going up. It doesn't make sense if the elevator is stuck on one floor. And so personally, that's something I always basically did. At the time, I read about this wonderful place called Silicon Valley. I was in London. And I thought one day, I'll end up there, and I'll take some photographs, and I'll come back home. Because why would I end up in California of all places? But it turned out that this internet startup did really well. I learned a lot from that experience. And then other technology companies kept calling me up to work for them. And I just kept working and working and working. Why was I working? Because I was supporting my parents and my sisters at the same time as a story of an immigrant in another country. And you just have to fight. You don't stop. You just have to keep moving forward. Eventually I ended up becoming the head of becoming a CIO of leading a technology team in a large company. The reason I did that is because I spent a lot of time learning what that job entailed. I could have stayed on one path. I could have said, I'm going to do this one particular job and be really good at it. That is a very good path to do. You can do that in cybersecurity and invent and have patents. You can do that in designing systems. That's phenomenal. And so, but you could do multiple paths. Path one is go deep into something. Be the expert, be the domain expert into it. And I think that makes a lot of sense, because then people will come to you because you're the person to go to. For me, it was about learning technology at levels of depth. And then across every area of what a company does when it runs systems. And so that's one of the things I did. That led into doing other CIO jobs. So I became CIO of a company called Qualys, which is a public web security company. I moved here in 2014. The reason I moved here in 2014 is because I was fired from my job in 2013. I didn't really know many people here, and I booked a flight, used some of my air miles. My wife and 2 kids were like, well, what are you doing? And my objective was very simple. I wanted to work for a US company in the UK, because I didn't have a green card. My wife is American and my kids were, but I was British, so no. So I ended up here. I booked a motel, a rent a car, and a flight, and I basically emailed everyone I knew, and all I said was, I'm going to be in town. I'd love to meet. If there's, if you have some time, please, would really appreciate that. So the other piece of advice I would give is sometimes you just don't know, and if you don't ask, you're not going to get. And it's better to, think about what the worst thing that happens. The worst thing that happens when you ask somebody is they don't respond or they say no. So why would you hesitate not doing that? And at that time, I was just fighting to get a job. So I would do that. It ended up that somebody I had treated relatively well in my last job was working at Qualys and said, you should meet our CEO. And I was he was very kind to spend time with me. And 3 weeks later, I got a call to say that, would you like to be the CIO of Qualys? And would you consider moving to the Bay Area? And my wife is American. She went to Stanford. I'm married way above my station. And so I asked, would you consider it? She says, yeah, I don't want to live in London anymore. So we did that. And candidly speaking, for the last 8 years, what I've been able to achieve here, despite the imperfections of the country, a number of different things, I think some of the things that, if you hear these stories, and there are millions of them out there, I think what we've been able to achieve here, we probably wouldn't have been able to achieve anywhere else. And so despite the imperfections, despite a lot of the craziness, despite multiple visits to secondary inspection at San Francisco Airport and New York Airport, I mean, Yusuf Ahmed Khan, born in Pakistan, what are you going to get, right? It still is a land of opportunity. I'll tell you the Zoom story very quickly. That was really about just having faith. I was a CIO at a company called Pure Storage. It was about 400 people when I joined. It was 4,000 by the time I left 4 years later. So it was a phenomenal journey to see a company grow to that scale, go through an IPO, get to billions of dollars in revenue. A guy called Eric Yuan, who was the founder and CEO of Zoom, had reached out. I was one of those people who takes risks with technology because I asked the question, what is the worst that's going to happen? And sometimes it's okay to take risks, calculated, but ones where you think that you may have a good result on the upside. That conversation led into me becoming one of the earliest customers of Zoom in 2015 when most people had not heard about it. And 6 months later, because I didn't ask for anything, I was very helpful to him. Out of gratitude, he asked me to become an advisor to the company, which, of course, if you think about what that meant, the companies are worth $25 billion. Alhamdulillah, that was life-changing for me. I love talking to founders. One of the biggest pieces of advice I will give anyone looking at a career, make sure your intentions are very clean. Like, if you think about finance, do not go into finance because you think you're going to make money. There's no judgment, but the moment you do that, you're distracted from doing the best work that you can do. The best work that I felt I could do is to be able to help founders think about their products and building their company. That's all I could do. I didn't know anything else about anything else, but I could tell them what people like me bought as a CIO or a CISO. And that was important for me to be able to do. And that allowed me to build a community amongst a lot of founders who used to reach out to me. And some of them I was an advisor to, some of them I was friends with. But all of that came together because by the time in 2020, it should come around, Zoom, of course, went from being used by 10 million people a day to 300 million people a day. That was something that I was part of very early, and I was very grateful for that. And so, the kind of key things that helps you navigate kind of what I've gone through is, one is being able to basically ask where you need help in life in general. I don't think people should stop doing that. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that, whether it's personally or professionally. Second, I would definitively say, do things that you are absolutely passionate about. Culturally, and I was born in Karachi, so and my uncles went to NED, so kudos. We were told very specifically, You got to pay the bills, absolutely. And I mean, if I'm perfectly honest, if I could have chosen a career outside of doing what I'm doing now, it would have been teaching history, because that's my first love intellectually. It's something I do and read about all day long. But you have to do what you're most passionate about. And the reason for that is very simple. If you work on things that you are passionate about, irrespective of what it is, then you don't think about anything else. You're able to be so much more focused, and all of your inner focus areas, like your energy, basically gets devoted to that. You know, Ahmed Salam is very focused on mental health, and he's been doing that since before it was an epidemic. You know, you don't think twice about something. You just keep driving further forward. And I learned that very, very early on. And I think that's very, very important. And the last thing I would say is, you know, combination of fear and fighting and faith. The moment you think about failure, you've already lost. And it sounds idealistic, but, you know, when you think about building a career, going after a project, going after an initiative, you have to think about in its complete outcome. You have to give it a fullest shot. So the reason that I made the shift into, I had a phenomenal job in 2020. I was a CIO of a company called Automation Anywhere. It was the third company I was joined to take public. I had a very nice job, I had a very nice budget, 150 people in my team. I could have easily, because it's the fifth time I was doing this job, I could have stayed doing that job without too much effort and getting paid a nice amount of money. Why did I change after only 6 months? Very good reason. Well, during the pandemic, in April, I had a couple of my friends who I would, could, and should have met for lunch, etc., passed away. One person was 38 years old. He died of a heart attack. Another person was in Pakistan. You can't travel. And these are people that you've wanted to get round to basically making time for and having lunch with, etc. And that opportunity will never exist again. But it was a wake-up call for me to realize that I had a lot of fear of being able to make a big shift in my career. So making a shift from being in a corporate job as a CIO in several companies to doing something on your own, that takes a lot of guts. It's a different level. I've always wanted to be in venture. I loved building businesses, and I'd always stopped myself from doing that because I had a fear of failure. And I had offers from firms years preceding that. I was the guy who helped, build Zoom and a bunch of other companies. And so I should have done that job 4 years ago, but you don't want to live your life in regret. And so that was a bit of a wake-up call where you have to get over that. And you have to say, well, I have to give this an absolutely fair shot. And for me, I had to give that a full shot. So 3 years in, alhamdulillah, I'm enjoying it tremendously. The only negative is that I have to go to San Francisco 3 days a week. But the fact that you do that when you're doing everything else, which is absolutely fun, is not a bad thing. So that's me. Happy to take questions. And sorry, chewing gum, that was my first job, ripping chewing gum off a carpet floor in a theater. So sometimes you just have to do what you have to do. And that's what I did. But, you got paid in cash, so it was totally fine. And by the way, if you are, walking down the street, don't put the chewing gum on the street. It's just, it doesn't work. Nobody likes that at all. Good. Questions?
Before questions, I want to add a couple of things as inspired by your talks. I believe they're going to help the audience, especially on the life lesson side. The first thing I would actually point to is a word called purpose. My kids, I have, alhamdulillah, 5 children, and some of them are older, some are younger. And the older ones, they, alhamdulillah, listen a lot nowadays to speeches by different Muslim speakers. And I hear the word purpose a lot, given in speeches and lectures. And at my age, and after I lived, and my life, and all the things I have gone through, I cannot emphasize more on the importance of having a purpose for your life. Money is a necessity, as we all know, but cannot be a purpose. I loved it when Brother Yusuf was talking about how his family started financially, like from that level all the way up, then going down, and then going up again. So if your purpose is money, you have to know that you're going to go into a cycle. But if your purpose is really to serve Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and to have constantly the intention that the only reason you are on this earth is to bring goodness to humanity, then that will shape your intention, shape your thoughts, and also shape your actions. In another word, it will give you motivations to work hard, passionately for an idea. If you know that this is useful for you, your family, the community, or even to humanity. I can give you two examples. It's 2006. McAfee made me chief architect because I came with a number of inventions that no one ever thought they are possible, and I was able to deliver even the first prototype just by myself. So I started to look at this, at the future of security, and I found that the financial model upon which the security companies have established their business is not completely good, because their business model is they sell you signatures, and the more threats there are, the more signature they're gonna sell, and there are more money they're gonna make. Basically, the more people are in trouble, the more customers suffer. It's better for security companies, and that's their basically economical model. So I wrote a paper to say that this economical model is inhumane. It assumes that people have to suffer, and the more they suffer, the more we make money. So I wrote a paper to the company executive. I was at McAfee, and I actually sent it even to Symantec, my former employer, and I was competing with them to say the same thing, that the model that upon which we have been operating as a security companies is inhumane, and it's in a need for a shift. And the shift should be that we find solutions that are proactive, which basically means without waiting for the threat or the virus to show, we know the behavior and we just deal with the behavior, not with the actual signature of the virus. And that became a purpose for me. I have to tell you that there were so many people that were against me. There was this top senior executive at McAfee who would constantly say, this Ahmed is destroying our business. Not only we should fire him, we should ban him from working for any other security company. He literally said that to the McAfee CEO in long emails, and I got to see one of them, and I was asked to respond. And my response was, well, I have a purpose in life, and my purpose is not very well aligned with making a financial empire or making McAfee $100 billion company. I want to solve the problems around computer system security. As a Muslim, my faith tells me to do it that way. So literally the debate was at some point in the room with the top executives whether security is a mission or a profession or a cash cow. And I had to go through this intense debate, even in the presence of board members. And I said, you should take responsibility when there is an attack over a power line, and because we were late in delivering the signature, and we were waiting for the customer to suffer and plead to us for delivery of a signature, so we charged them extra $2 million, versus me when I say, you know what, even when this happened, the attack comes, nothing will happen, and 500,000 households that were impacted, they will feel no difference. They will not lose electrical power, for instance. And then when they didn't believe in it, I actually escalated that to the office of the US president. I said, you know what? It's a matter of national security. And we need to revisit the definition of security. Are security companies operating mainly to make money, or are their main mission or purpose in life is to secure Americans and secure America against the adversaries? Gonna pause here. So the point is, you need to have a purpose in life. The purpose in life has to be aligned with the simple fact. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made us his khulafa in this earth. We represent Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Islam gives us lots of directions and lots of deep insights into the life of humans, how you can establish a good life. I liked what the brother is doing now by giving this interest-free micro loans. And mashallah, he has mentioned like 4,000. When I hear, when I hear the stories today, this is like a story that inspires me, because this is really what matters. Why those stories are very important? Because we live in Silicon Valley, where it's all about money, power, dominance, and wealth. Brother Yusuf mentioned that, alhamdulillah, I have been active in the mental health for a good number of years now. I'm going to tell you the second story, and the second story about money. Yesterday, I was in a meeting with the directors of mental health in this county, two of them. And 2 days ago, I went with my wife. She's sitting over there. What's the name of the movie we went to? Sound of Freedom. Please go and watch the movie. But be careful, it's very emotionally intense. The point is, the movie is talking about the sex? Yes, sex trafficking. And how tech executives, for instance, are basically involved in that. Do you know, I have seen this with my own eyes, and I took stand against things when I was a corporate officer and a corporate executive in big public companies. Why this is important? This is important because there is lots of corruption, human corruption, in America in general, and it's more centralized in the technology sector. And the technology sector is this is where the center of the origin of all the ideas. SubhanAllah, I didn't want to mention this, but you know why I decided to mention it? Because of the story of Miss Elizabeth Holmes, the brother also mentioned. Again, it's another symbol of greed and deception and betrayal, and having no moral compass, and having no purpose in life other than making money, monopoly, domination, and everything it's very selfish purpose.
I think you got to keep intentions clean. I just want to be respectful because of the questions that they have, basically. So would that be all right, brother? Do you wanna-
Yeah.
Yeah.
So to conclude here is, you have to have a purpose, and you have to connect your purpose with your faith, and you have to be constantly reminded that everything around you, especially in Silicon Valley, is not going to be well aligned, neither with your purpose nor with the faith that we all believe in. And that's a big struggle for every one of us. Jazakallah khair.
Thank you guys all for sharing your knowledge to everyone. A few questions we have. If you guys have any questions, you can scan the QR code. If you see any questions you like, you could just click the like button to move it up. The first question we have is for Brother Ahmed. What made you not feel defeated when your professor mocked you about implementing Arabic in computers?
Actually, that's a good question, and that goes into what Brother Yusuf was talking about, fear. Actually, I'm going to tell you, fear grows with you as you start having a family and having more responsibilities. When you are just someone at college and not worrying much about life, you don't have much fear. Actually, you have more of curiosity and questions in your mind. Fear is something that keeps growing in your heart. And Alhamdulillah, at that time, because also which goes into my early childhood that had lots of early inventions and curiosity and thinking about how things should be. But there was a main fundamental thing or a theme in my head all the time. I always had this observation that everything we have is created by a foreign, Western, or Eastern company. It's a Japanese company, Korean company, American company, or British company, or European company. When they make the thing, the product, the technology for us, they do not have our culture, our religion, as people in their mind. So they create the product and then they teach you that this is the best product for you. And then you change your life, you change your culture, even you change now your faith. So I had this notion early in my head clear that technology has to be localized and personalized. I did not have those exact fancy words because I was not that educated. But I had this simple belief that if I am using something, then it has to be meeting my own needs, not as others define for me, but as I feel the need myself. However, I have to say, after I was mocked for many weeks because I was so popular, I'm the one who stood up and made this courageous statement. I started to have feeling like embarrassed, but I worked hard because I started to speak with the professors and then they helped me giving me manuals about the computer architecture. So I turned my social embarrassment into some actions, which is really what matters most, is being action oriented. And when you engage in an action, emotions, the negative emotions disappear. And then you only have the positive ones. You have the passion, you have the motive, and all good feelings come when you are doing the thing. So always translate your idea, your fear into a real practical positive action. And out of a sudden you feel yourself engaged, you'll feel naturally, delivering useful results. Jazakallah khair.
Thank you. Next question is, what's the best advice you'd give to a young person looking to start a business?
Well, first of all, you can connect with me on LinkedIn. That would be a good start. Happy to help people. Couple of things. One is think about why you want to start a business. Like a lot of people just make this mistake. There is a unfortunate narrative in Silicon Valley specifically, which is like, well, these companies, they get funded and, you get this headlines and TechCrunch and you go to VCs and I want to be like, more companies fail than succeed. That's just a fact. I know, I've got the data. That doesn't mean that you shouldn't give it a fair shot, but you have to ask yourself, why do you want to set up this business? The best ideas and the best companies typically come from solving a problem which either you yourself have been frustrated by, or things that you consistently hear is a problem and is not being solved for. When Zoom was first created and founded, there were many companies that competed. It wasn't the first video conferencing company. Apple did not create the music industry. There were plenty of MP3 players way before the iPod, right? So everybody had a guiding philosophy, and you've got to think about kind of absolutely at the core what that is, why you want to set up a business, what do you want to set up around. The second I would understand is like, it is definitively, you've got to be there's a lot of courage that goes with that. so do it for the right intentions. Don't do it for the glory. Most of the times you'll probably make zero money. It'll probably take a long time for that to basically happen. But if it's an objective that you have, both generally about setting up a business or otherwise, then you have to give it a fair shot. Because the one thing that I've learned is, and I talk to founders all the time, the best founders are the ones who actually do it. Ideas, lots of them, all great. Advice, you never even ask for it, and you get so much of it all the time. But the true entrepreneurs and the true founders are the ones who are like, this market needs a product. I know this, I need to basically build it, and I'm going to go ahead and do that. And so be very clear about the problem you're trying to solve. Do the research and do the homework. This is not a lifestyle choice. Like, it's actually, in fact, I mean, you have to be slightly, a little bit on the edge to be able to become a founder. I say that with respect, because I see this every day. I meet 1,000 companies a year, and there are people who are successful operators working in technology companies. They've got benefits, they've got salaries, they get bonuses. And one day they're like, I'm going to give all of that up and I'm going to build $1 billion company. And somebody, you just got to respect that. But the other question is, one of the questions I always ask before we make an investment in a company is, we meet the founder, we look him in the eye and say, why are you doing this? And you try and basically weed that out. And the moment you know the right founders who are like, you back the ideas that go with. So just know that, do the groundwork, do the homework. How do you build a business? How do you raise money? Like, most people go into it very ill-informed. And so the biggest advice is just do the homework and make sure you have very clear intentions about why you're doing it.
Yeah. So when you're trying to start a business or thinking about an idea, as Yusuf mentioned, you have to find a problem that is to be solved, but at the same time, you have to be passionate about it. Because if you are passionate, then this is not work. This is more like fun thing. You can consume 10, 15, 18 hours without any problem. That becomes your life. It's so much fun. You don't mind sleeping on the floor, just sleeping on the floor in your garage or your office, because you're getting up in 3-4 hours and start doing the coding or whatever. So that is one thing. But more important than that is the fact that you have to be focused. You cannot do multiple things. Like, you have an idea of A, B, or C. So let's try this a little bit. No, you have to be 100% focused, and you have to be the person of integrity and honesty. And that are the key aspects for doing the business. Just keep your focus, make sure you're passionate about that, and no cutting corners. It sounds cliche, but that is the way to go, and that is how you become successful in whatever you're doing. So,
It's not a part-time job. That's the biggest thing. You have to be all in, otherwise it doesn't work.
Yep, exactly.
And I would add 2 quick things to what the brothers have said. The first one is, you have to constantly engage with the customers and have a feedback and constantly improve and enhance whatever you're building. It's a product or a solution. Because in the end, whether you make money of it or not, you're not doing it for yourself, you're doing it for others. So you have to constantly assess the fitting of your product to your target market, and there is no way to do that while you sit on your computer just reading reports. You have literally to try the service or try the product, see the customer impression and reaction. So that's one thing. The other thing is the high emphasis on quality. There are companies that, and I believe like NextLogic, I believe the brother they have been successful because they had high emphasis on quality. Same for my work. In whichever product I was in charge of, I was alhamdulillah VP of products and product strategy for big companies, big public companies. I always focus on quality. Quality means, why would I build something that's defective, and I know it doesn't work, why would I waste the money, the time, and people's effort like that? So quality matters and matters and matters. Jazakallah khair.
All right, Jazakallah. So Adhan's going to happen soon, so we'll just ask one more question and give you guys a little bit of time to network and ask a few questions if you guys have individually. The last question I'll ask all of you is, what's a question you thought you think we're supposed to ask you, but we didn't?
You know, in business, there are always some occasions, some places, some moments you're not sure you're going to make it, or I've tapped my line of credit, I have maxed out my credit cards, payroll is due in 3 days. Are we going to make it or not? I mean, that is where your faith comes in, right? That's, you have to keep going. You have to just march forward. Yes, fear of failure is there, but don't give up your hope. That is my message. That, you know, somebody didn't ask, but just keep going. Adversity, bad situation, whatever that is, you cannot give up. You have to march forward.
Yeah, I would agree to that, and I don't want to have like drama in my talk, but I had lots of emotional situations in my career, because think of it, a Muslim from the Middle East during 9/11 or the war in Iraq, he's the top, I would say, thought leadership, the top security technologists at the top US companies. So the amount of prejudice, the amount of attacks, even the amount of reports I had to deal with was part of my life. And there were lots of fear and also lots of failures, feeling that, you know what, everyone is against me, I'm different, and nothing is gonna work. This is the moment where you have to turn back to the basics. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you're here on earth, serving Allah before anyone, is our protector, and fear is natural, but don't let the fear control you or take over. Just find an easy way to get the fear out, get back to focus on your mission in life, and try to connect with the good people, because there will, and that's also another important thing I want to mention, there are always good people around. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did not create humans as evil. Every single human has goodness in him. So try to connect with the good part in people, and you will always find open doors. So this is another important lesson in my own career. And I ended up by having so many people that initially I thought they are my enemies. They actually became my topmost ally and my topmost supporter once I connected with the good part in them, in their heart or in their mind.
I think that probably opportunistic, but I probably should have asked, did faith play a part in my career? I think it's important to kind of leave you with this takeaway. There will be trials and tribulations in your life. I think a certain generation faced different, every generation faces that. Definitively in each of our stories, there has been uncertainty, fear. You're a guy from Hyderabad who's ended up in Iowa, no offense, but like somewhere down the line, you're earning $7 and the guy from McDonald's earning $5, and you're saying, what did I do to deserve this, right? I definitely ask that question a lot in my life. I'm very transparent, as you'll probably sometimes too much, but yeah, there have been times in my life that I did get to a stage where I was like, can I just be given a break? And you sometimes have that. But I think one lesson I learned very early on is, where I know this now as a parent, ultimately you are a result of of prayers of the people around you, family, friends. That hopefully it's a good checkpoint for you to make sure that you are a productive and a positive member in society. The second, and that helped guide my kind of way of being able to help people and do what I can. But the other guiding light was to basically say that we're always going to be tested, and that's really the true test of one's faith and rigor. And if you think about, I'll say something controversial. I used to do Ramadan for the cash. Like seriously, when I was like growing up, you say Eidi, you give that out. I did it for the cash, okay? Growing up. But you don't realize once you actually grow up and become a little bit smarter, you actually realize that 1 billion people during the holy month of Ramadan are making sacrifice to come closer to God. And that's huge. Right on cue.
حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله.
All right, thank you guys for coming. This will conclude our event for today. We still have a few more minutes before the Iqamah, so if you guys have any questions, feel free to come up and ask our guest speakers. Thank you. Jazakallah.